Hey guys. So the next step is, what I want to do. I've got InDesign open and we're looking at the Fan-Zine project with the VMP precedent. If I come over here and click on pages, I can see that we've already created 16 pages. If I come over here and highlight layers, we've got a layer for typography, graphics, and the precedent. And if I click the little eyeball here, I can turn on the visibility and I can see that we've sort of laid out, you know, basically a pretty good blueprint, essentially, because as stated before, you can learn a lot from looking at precedents about what simply works in design. This is a typography class, and typography is basically using letter forms to communicate. And you can do that at different scales. You can arrange the letter forms and the words in different places on the page to be more expressive or more functional. You can choose different fonts to express, different, tones with your words or with the communication. Um, this particular document is using a lot of sans serif typography, which I am personally okay with. But of course, you guys are creating your own fanzine. So some of your typography might be serif typeface or sans serif typeface or hand-drawn letter forms. In fact, I think they do that really well on these pages. Okay. With these beautiful kind of like octopus kind of letter forms. Um, I really like this page too because in this sans serif typeface, it's kind of spreading over both sheets or the entire spread. Um, there's also this really wonderful thing happening here in this document where there's a standard two-column layout being utilized. And there's also a real beautiful three-column layout being utilized. I see these as opportunities where you guys can place whatever you need to place there. Like maybe it's an interview or because your fanzine is supposed to be informative about your particular subject. And so maybe like you are able to find an archived interview and online and you can grab it and you can sort of place it into this document. I would advise that you find things that are already existing online and then you're basically kind of collaging. And that's really what InDesign is. It's a collage tool where you can pull things from a lot of different locations and mash them together into one document. Okay. So, but one of the things I wanted to do, I mean, we have this precedent layer kind of set up, and that's handy. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about is lorem ipsum. So in other words, before you even find all of the content for your project, you may not know what interview you're going to use. You may not be certain about a lot of things. And so what you could do is you could set up content opportunities. So you're doing the design, but maybe like, let's set up this circumstance. Maybe you're working in a marketing office, and oftentimes the designer is not responsible for the interview. They're not responsible for the photographs. They're actually mostly responsible for just layout and how things are going to appear on the page in a very functional and logical manner. The photographer is going to give you the photos. The content editor is going to give you the interview. Okay. And if we have to cut down that interview, you'll have to communicate with the content editor. So this is a circumstance where you would be working with people in an office who have different roles. Okay. But as you're the designer, so your role is to do layout and to make sure that you can get all of the content into the document. So sometimes you don't have the words or the finalized interview, but you still want to do some design work. And in that circumstance, you might use something called lorem ipsum. And so let's see, I was actually, I'm gonna go to Chrome, create a new tab here, and then I'm gonna type lorem. ipsum and see what comes up. And so if you click, here's my first hit using Google Chrome, but if I click on this, it's describing what lorem ipsum is, and this is a really good description. It's dummy text. It's temporary dummy text for printing and typesetting, okay? And down here are some examples. And so I always go in here. You can copy and paste it from your browser if you'd like, but the real thing that I like to do, I have a lorem text file that I'm always using. And so you can kind of see it's always there for me to just copy and paste that lorem text. All right. So I like doing it that way, and I'll tell you why. It's because um, oftentimes when you just copy and paste from a Microsoft Word document or from someplace online, when you copy and paste that text, the inherited attributes of that font, for example, it being Helvetica or Garamond or whatever, Times New Roman, and also like 12 points with, a certain amount of kerning. Those attributes come along for the ride. And so what I like about setting up a text file is I can strip it or make it plain text. So file. So if I click on this, I can go to format and see I can make it rich text again. All right. So you can see now it's giving me the option of giving it, Helvetica, yada, yada, yada. But when it's plain text, it's just raw. There are no attributes. It's just text. Okay. That's really useful when you're copying and pasting this sort of thing into a document because you do not want to have pre-existing attributes associated with your text. As the designer, your job is to define or give the font particular attributes like, okay, I want it to be Helvetica and I want it to be this size and I want it to have this kind of kerning and I want it to be justified to the center or justified to the left. So those are things that you'll be deciding in this document. Okay, so now I just need to start doing some layout. So I'm gonna go through this one page at a time, guys, okay? The first thing I'm going to do is there's a big graphic on this page. So what I could do is I could actually unlock the graphics layer, and then I could come over here and with the rectangle frame tool, I can just drop a future opportunity for an image on this page. Okay. Notice how I'm going beyond the page boundaries. I'm extending the image all the way to the bleed. Okay. I'm doing that because sometimes you may have noticed sometimes with a document that you've gotten in the mail, sometimes there's an annoying, like it doesn't, like the image doesn't go all the way to the edge. And so having a bleed when you're setting up the document ensures that the image will cover the entire exported file, okay, if that makes sense. There won't be any little annoying kind of white lines or little like imperfections because your image is actually going well beyond the page boundary in the digital realm. That's why we have bleeds, okay? And so I've got that set up. So I'm going to lock that down again so I can't mess with it. But I'm going to create another layer and I'm going to call it, actually, we've got this layer. And I think I'm just going to, for this circumstance, I'm going to use the typography layer. So I'm going to unlock it. And I want to start just placing text, but the real truth is that that kind of makes me a little nervous. I just don't like doing things that way. So I need to take a little detour here, guys. I need to create another layer and I need to explore like some sort of like a system, an underlying system for how I am going to be placing things in this document. And so I can even call this layer, I don't know, like system, or whatever. Okay. I'm gonna put it here. I think I'm going to put it above the precedent. I'm going to make the precedent go away temporarily. I'm going to make graphics go away as well. So what I like to do is I'll just take the rectangle tool and I'll make sure that snap to document grid is on. All right. I'm just going to sort of explore a little bit. I'm going to make this square cyan, make a copy of it. And I want to make sure that it's exactly like what 2 inches or 1 inches or whatever the appropriate dimension is. You can confirm that by highlighting your rectangle and then coming up here at width and height. So it's 2 by 2 inches approximately. Sometimes in InDesign, you can be off by just a hair, and that can be really annoying. Illustrator is a little bit more precise compared to InDesign, frankly. But so you can confirm that though by looking at this information up here. I don't want two blocks that are cyan, but I want them to be identical. So now I'm going to make that one magenta. And now I'm just going to sort of, I don't know, like I said, guys, I'm just trying to figure out how the layout of this document is going to work. Okay. So let's see here. Could do it that way. Just command and copy, and then I can go to object and then transform and then rotate 180. The reason why I did that was because I want it to be a checkerboard pattern. Okay. So now I can drag and select all and then copy. And you might see kind of what I'm trying to do here. I'm just setting up some sort of a structure, okay, that can be helpful in this process for me. And I'm going to split the difference here, guys. All right. Okay. I also don't want this to be completely opaque. So as you can see, you can apply some alpha channel to these objects. So I'm going to select all. Then I'm going to make that like 25%. There's another thing that I would like to do. I don't want it. I mean, I could copy and paste this and put it on every single page, but there's a smarter way to go about doing this. So I'm going to copy, and believe it or not, I'm going to delete. And now I'm going to show you something. I can now go into the A parent page, okay, and hit Command V. Put these checkerboards over here. And I still have it on this layer, okay? But see what just happened there, folks? This is so cool. Now, the checkerboard is on all of the pages because I put it on a parent page up here, okay? Really cool stuff. I don't know. I mean, you guys, I still nerd out on this kind of thing, all right? It's pretty darn cool. And I don't know why, but we're getting these like ghost images here on the left-hand side. That's a little bit odd. A little confused on why that's happening. I think I might have, and let me just kind of confirm something here. Huh. I just want to make sure that all is as it should be. Well, it looks good to me. So I'm going to do this one more time. Copy, paste. There we go. And notice how it's snapping beautifully to the grid. That's because I have snap to grid on right here. Okay. I'm not always going to want that to be on, but the real truth is I'm the kind of designer, I like snap to grid a lot because I'm working with the grid a lot. It makes a lot of sense to me personally. I would advise that you guys definitely work with the grid when you're starting out. Okay. Okay. So we've got this beautiful layer that we can just kind of turn on and off. And it's currently on pretty much all of our pages. Okay, so there's something else that we could do. I wonder, now we can definitely see how you can sort of see that actually the way the grid was being used a little bit, right? Look at that. I mean, it's not a total accident that that is happening here, guys. All right. So I just want you to be aware of that. This is a little bit funny because this is a 1/3 or a 3 column layout. So that's another animal in itself, and we'll get there to talk about this, okay? Um, but for the time being, let's look at the first page. And now I want to bring back, I have everything locked. I'm going to go back to the typography layer, turn it on. I'm going to unlock that layer because now I'm going to go and grab the text tool and I'm going to call this lorem. I also want it to be all caps. Well, no, I'm going to leave it. I can make that decision later. But I definitely want it to be sans serif because I'm a sans serif kind of guy. All right. And now I'm just going to start mimicking things, guys. All right. I'm going to start mimicking things and I'm going to sort of like make some compromises or observations from both the precedent and this sort of grid system layout that I've created. All right. And now I'm going to say IPSUM. Notice how this little red box appeared because the text cannot fit entirely in the window that is currently there. So if I click on this, look at that. I've just threaded the text. It's not bad. Okay, so let's do something else. We have this text right over here. Instead of typing lorem ipsum out, I'm going to come over here and just grab some lorem ipsum. Again, it's that copy and paste. And I want it to be Helvetica. All right. I have to do a little bit of editing. Took out a little bit too much, if you ask me. Guys, this is just gibberish. It doesn't mean anything, okay? We're just kind of doing some basic and simple layout, and it's kind of cool. We can also start taking the precedent away just to kind of see how things look, okay? This needs to be corrected. Look at that. I like that. This can go all the way to the edge there. It's still not going to fit though. Um, so We'll have to cheat a little bit. Okay. Again, we're just kind of trying to get a sense of some layout. I want this to be bold. Notice how the bold text compared to the regular text fills the frame differently. I think that's a really important observation, okay? And if we're looking at the typography where it says, I will never again play anything that does not have social significance, and Max Roach and Abby Lincoln found liberation and we insist, those are the same size, okay? And so you guys will hear me say this constantly in all of my classes, this idea of consistency, okay? So you can just copy and paste that down here and sort of find a good spot for it. Notice how things are still snapping into the grid real beautifully, all right? And this quote ended up being a little too long. Again, this is just placeholder text, guys. We're just trying to get a feel of how we can do some layout, all right? And it's so cool because then we can just kind of remove some things. Look at that. Then we can kind of zoom out and kind of get a broader perspective on how things are looking. Remember, we still also have that image that we placed there too. So the graphic or the future graphic will be underneath. Okay. So we're just simply doing layout right now. Let's keep going. Um, Instead of reinventing the wheel, I'm just going to grab this, drop it up here. And maybe that text, instead of it being 120, is 100. Kind of depends because, again, this is your project, and each of you have different themes associated with your project. For consistency, I'm just going to grab this text up here, guys. And here's the other thing. Right now it's justified to the left, but I can justify it to the right. I know they're not exactly doing that here, but just kind of, that's my intuition is talking to me there. Okay, guys? Okay, so now we have a two-column layout. Okay, so I think we're going to need more lorem. So I'm going to grab all of this stuff. I'm going to create a text box. I'm going to hit Command A to select all. Then I'm going to make it all Helvetica. Okay. And then I'm going to do some placement. And look at this. So 1, 2. It's still not enough space. So I can click this little red icon down here. And that can bring it up here. And I love how this is working out. It's nice. Look at that. Real simple, beautiful two-column layout. I'm going to need some more lorem. And maybe in this circumstance, let's see, I'm going to turn off the precedent for a minute so I can see properly. Just want to back this up a little bit. You guys might be thinking, look at all this wasted space. That space is not wasted. That is beautiful negative space, okay? The goal is not to cram the goal is to fit things comfortably, but don't cram the room, okay? Don't cram the space. Command S to save. Got to save it occasionally. And look at this. I think we're making some progress, on just kind of doing some very simple, beautiful layout for this project. I just want to hit on this one more time. This is not the end all be all. You're simply learning from the precedent. And so you're still able to make changes dependent on your content and what you find. Okay. So we're going to learn a lot from this document. And while we're learning from this document, we're going to sort of maybe kind of loosen the bolts a little bit and move things around to fit your vision and your creativity because you are the designer. So, still working on the typography layer. Let's see. I want to bring back the precedent. This is interesting right here. I like this. With the clock chime, excuse me, guys. Let's grab some, just this big lorem up here. Let's go back here to grab the standard lorem. Double click in, Command A. Okay, it's not quite large enough. That seems about right to me. I am having to break some rules here too, guys. Um, Basically, this is a table of contents, right? And select here, and we can select some of the text and justify it sometimes. Not today, apparently. So in this circumstance, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to repeat lorem ipsum. To be a little bit longer there to fit everything. The other way that we could do this, in fact, I think I am going to make this change. First of all, this needs to be bold, right? We'll keep this regular. So bold Helvetica and regular Helvetica. We don't need that little thing there. I'm going to copy this, delete it, bring this in. I created a new text box. Select the O1 within that text box, and then up here, I'm going to justify it right. And so just kind of, I'm going to simplify this area a little bit. Whoops. Now this is interesting. This is basically a 3-column layout right there. And so if we measure this out, that is approximately 7 inches wide. So what I'm going to propose is that we 2.25 to start with. And I'm looking in the top left-hand corner. The width is 2.25 and the height is 2.25. Okay. But the real truth is I need that to be a text box. I'm gonna start with 2.25. Just throw some generic lorem in there. I'm doing some measurements right now, guys, to see how this is going to be able to fit. I'll move this up here so that we can see it a little bit better. And we still have, looks like I can select this one and move it all the way over, and then move this one over a hair. So look at that, that worked out perfectly. So there's our 3-column layout right there. If we wanted to, it's not perfect, guys. It's a little bit tight, right here. And so I would prefer that instead of there being a 1/4 of an inch, I would prefer that there was a 1/2 inch. But that'll do for now. And actually, I'm going to copy this because we're going to be using that again. I'm scrolling down here. I'm going to put this down here so that we can use it down the road. Okay. For the 3-column layout. Okay. So there we go. I just want some generic text in there. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And I'm also going to change this to Helvetica, drop that down to maybe 10. Again, just kind of learning from this document. Command C that, and then I'm going to simply put that over here. Okay, now I really like this, when we zoom out, we can kind of see the structure of how things are sort of panning out a bit, okay? All right, now I'm going to save this and I'm going to bring the precedent back, okay? And for consistency, gosh, I don't even have to reinvent this wheel. Look at this, I can just bring this right down here, okay? And similarly, honestly, with this size text, right? I can just kind of start because um, we don't want to have 12 or 15 different hierarchies or type styles in our document. We want to keep things relatively minimal and clean and clear and consistent. And so you really should be copying and pasting a lot of lorem when you're doing this sort of layout, okay? And here's another 2-column system. Well, we already made that. So we can just drop this down here. right? Look, it's going to plug right in. Maybe we extend the height a little bit, for whatever reason, and then we'll know even have an idea of how high we can extend it. Maybe instead of extending this all the way, maybe it's just halfway, right? So there are a variety I mean, this is a very flexible system for us to be using. Now this is pretty cool too. I really like this. Um, and it's not talking to the grid directly, but I can still definitely see the two column layout happening, right? Which is very, very useful. And then for these images, we can just drop in, we can go, we can actually lock typography for a minute, unlock graphics. Let's do it. Let's just etch in some opportunities for images in here, all right? And you guys, I am the kind of designer that is going to pay attention to that grid. Like, because it's kind of like in a city, like the grid is everywhere, but my favorite analogy to use is the way the grid defines how a city layout is planned and occurs over time. And the grid has to talk to things like mountains, and it has to respond to rivers or even like the ocean, and all of these unexpected sort of unique qualities to the landscape. In the same way, your document is responding to the unique qualities of your project, okay? So your mountains and your rivers and your oceans, from your zine idea or visual idea and project, those are going to help to define, what you're doing. But having an underlying grid can be very, very helpful, right? Um, so I'm going to use this again. I've locked typography, so I have to unlock it really quickly. I'm going to borrow this two-column grid system. All right. And I know like not everything's going to fit in here, so I'm going to have to do some editing. No big deal. So I'm just going to make that go away for a bit. First thing I know is that, look at some of my other text. I'm going to make some additional lorem ipsum actually. And I'm going to make this bold, pop this up to 30, right? Look at the precedent again. Gotta delete some text. Yeah. So we don't need all this stuff. Cleaning house, guys. I don't even need that one because I'm just going to copy and paste. You guys, I mean, this is how efficient layout is done, right? Ben, we're missing something up here. I believe that's kind of like an orphan uh, typography comment. I'm not going to worry so much about that right now. I'm just going to move on. I think this is pretty clear. I'm going to lock typography for a moment, and I can create a large graphic here. Whoops. Got to highlight the layer that you want to put something on. And so the graphic is actually going to expand the entire spread of those 2 pages, okay? And it's also going to extend all the way over to the bleed line. Okay, so we've got the graphic in this page, but the real truth is, I also feel like the typography is hand drawn. So maybe you guys can do something in your sketchbook. I don't know, but I'm going to lock the graphic layer, unlock typography. I'm going to create another opportunity for some text or an Illustrator file possibly, or a PNG file that can be placed here. And I also want it, well, it's kind of funny because I don't think I want it to go all the way to the bleed edge because I need that legibility. I mean, some of it is getting cut off there. I mean, these are we're getting into the weeds here with design sort of details here, guys, but I think you get the point where basically I just realized that I can place some real beautiful hand-drawn text there. And that's what that's about, okay? There is some nice kind of just text here. Let's see here. I'm gonna borrow you guys because consistency is good. So it's perfectly okay to just go in and start borrowing typography or like size, so that you don't have things all over the place. In fact, I think the size that I want is this one right here. I like that. I'm guessing that that's gonna work. I could be wrong. I'm gonna bring back my system. Hmm. This is breaking the rule of my system a little bit. So, I might even, I mean, I could put it here if but I'm not a machine. I'm not a robot, so like my intuition is telling me, well, what if I put it like right here? Okay. Okay. And then I'm going to borrow, so that text. Okay, let's make this go away temporarily. See how that looks. Well, it doesn't look like much now, but that's, we're just doing some layout. Again, we haven't gotten the photograph from our in-house photographer, but we're starting to think about where to place things and where we're going to put things. Okay. Okay, so let's Command S it to make sure that we don't lose any of our progress. Let's bring back our precedent. Here's that 3-column layout that I had mentioned to you guys. So all I have to do is just extend this up a little bit, right? And this might sound funny, but we're going to go back, grab some more lorem, plug it in, see what's going on here. We do have the little dot here, but we need to thread it to the next square. And what I'm going to do, it's kind of funny. Sometimes I wish you could just kind of thread it to I guess a square that's already kind of set up. Maybe there's a way to do that, and I just haven't figured out how to do it yet. Just let me know if you have a magic bullet solution. But I'm just going to remake mine, okay? Let's grab some more lorem. Oh, also, we need to make this Helvetica, right? Right, and this again, we're getting this little friendly dot. There we go. In fact, I was just talking about the magic bullet solution. I just did it. Thank you. About, huh? And look how beautifully this is just talking to the grid of the document, not only of the one that we made. Bring back the precedent. Okay, so now there's a different kind of like this is a different size of typography here. So that's interesting. And this actually, like I like this half-inch margin. And so the precedent kind of like bleeds into that or kind of like exceeds that a little bit. So my advice is to continue following uh, those rules that you've kind of set up for yourself. Okay, folks? I like how this is sort of like squinched in a little bit there. We'll see. So let's grab some additional lorem. We'll grab just this one. You can see how valuable that lorem is, right? 30 is way too high. What about 18? It's also bold. So we're kind of learning, some hierarchy, the way the bold typography contrasts with the regular Helvetica typography down here. Sometimes you can just kind of open up the box a little bit if you need to delete some lorem, because this is just gibberish text. It doesn't need to mean anything or be grammatically correct or any of that business. Let's take away the precedent and see how it looks. I mean, you guys, this is coming together real nice, right? With that. Just a little bit of order and organization to things that we're learning. We're learning from the document, okay? What's next? I mean, we have a lot of pages to go through, and I don't think I'm going to go through all of them in this video, but I think you guys are getting pretty much the point of what's happening here, okay? So the value of both the 2 and the 3 column. So back here, the 2 column layout. I mean, this is bread and butter stuff in the publication world. 2 column layout or 3 column layout. And you guys might have to make some decisions dependent on not necessarily what the precedent is telling you to do, but you might find a really great interview with one of your artists or whoever or whatever your document or fanzine is about, and maybe you just need more room and space. So you're going to have to modify your document a little bit, okay? But I do want you to learn quite a bit from everything that is happening here. There is some real nice, beautiful, clear layout that can be very useful, okay? On the other side, of course, mine will be done, but I don't think I need to spend another hour with you guys doing this sort of thing. I think you get the hint. Okay, thanks, guys. See you on the other side. Bye.